Deep down, do you believe that it is noble to be poor? Or perhaps that God loves the humble more than the wealthy? This is the poverty virus, a lie that has infected humanity for centuries, passed down through generations like a hereditary disease of the mind. But Wallace D. Wattles, with the precision of a surgeon and the courage of a prophet, cut this lie out at its root. He declared, without hesitation or apology, that poverty is not a virtue. It is a mental disease. And he revealed something even more radical, that you possess a specific divine right that does not just allow you to be rich, but actually requires it. This is not permission. This is obligation. This is not luxury. This is law. The pain you carry is subtle, but it is devastating. It is the nagging guilt that sabotages your success at the very moment of breakthrough. It is the voice that whispers, "Who am I to have so much?" when the opportunity finally arrives. It is the invisible hand that pulls you back into mediocrity just as you reach for greatness. You have been taught to distrust your own desires, to apologize for your ambitions, to feel shame for wanting more. This guilt operates like a virus in your consciousness, replicating itself in every decision you make, every opportunity you decline, every dream you abandon before it even takes shape. We have been conditioned to believe that we need to be lucky or chosen to be rich, as if wealth were some arbitrary gift bestowed by capricious gods upon the fortunate few. But Wattles taught something entirely different. That wealth is the natural result of fulfilling your primary function as a human being. To be poor is not to be virtuous. It is to be incomplete. It is to be a seed that refuses to sprout, a bird that refuses to fly, a river that refuses to flow. Poverty is the denial of your own nature, the rejection of your own purpose, the betrayal of your own potential. The promise I offer you today is not merely financial, it is existential. I will expose the right to be rich as a fundamental law of existence, as undeniable as gravity and as essential as breath. I will free you from the guilt that has chained you to limitation, and in doing so, I will open the floodgates of abundance that have always been waiting for you. This is not about greed. This is about growth. This is not about taking. This is about becoming. This is not about having more. This is about being more. What I am about to share with you is the philosophical foundation without which no technique, no method, no strategy will ever work. You can learn 1,000 tactics for making money, but if you carry the poverty virus in your consciousness, you will sabotage every single one of them. The foundation must be laid first, and that foundation is your acceptance of a truth so radical that it will shake the very pillars of your belief system. You have a divine right to be rich, and the universe needs you to claim it. Here is the pact I make with you today. In this video, you will learn the 3 reasons why the universe needs you to be rich. You will discover how to align your desire for money with the divine will itself, so that every dollar you earn becomes an act of spiritual obedience rather than moral transgression. You will understand why poverty is not a test of your character, but a failure of your understanding. And you will walk away from this teaching transformed, no longer apologizing for your existence, no longer shrinking from your potential, no longer carrying the burden of false humility. But there is something else, something darker that I must reveal to you later in this journey. There is a specific type of sacrifice that people make, thinking they are being good spiritual people, thinking they are serving God and humanity, which Wattles identified as a sin against life itself. This is the sacrifice trap, and it has destroyed more potential, wasted more talent, and created more suffering than any other spiritual error in human history. I will reveal this trap in part 4, and when I do, you will understand why your martyrdom serves no one, not God, not humanity, and certainly not yourself. Right now, I ask you to take the first step in breaking the vow of poverty that you never consciously made but have been living under your entire life. Comment below, "I accept my right," and feel the shift that occurs in your consciousness as you type those words. Subscribe to this channel, because what we are building here is not just a collection of videos, it is a sanctuary for those who refuse to live small lives. This is the Master's legacy, and you have just stepped through the portal. Let us begin with the foundation that Wallace D. Wattles laid with surgical precision in the opening pages of his immortal work. He wrote, "Whatever may be said in praise of poverty, the fact remains that it is not possible to live a really complete or successful life unless one is rich." Read that again slowly, and let it penetrate the layers of conditioning that have armored your mind against this truth. This is not opinion, this is observation. This is not philosophy, this is fact. And the reason is so simple, so obvious, that it has been hiding in plain sight your entire life. To develop your soul, you need things. To expand your mind, you need things. To care for your body, you need things. You need books that open new worlds of thought. You need travel that exposes you to different cultures and perspectives. You need art that elevates your consciousness and reminds you of beauty. You need music that stirs your emotions and connects you to the universal rhythm. You need good food that nourishes your body and gives you the energy to pursue your purpose. You need a comfortable home where you can rest, reflect, and create. You need time, that most precious of all resources, which can only be purchased by having enough money that you are not enslaved to survival. In a modern society, all of these things require money. This is not a moral judgment, it is a structural reality. We do not live in a barter economy where you can trade your labor directly for the things you need. We live in a monetary economy, where money is the medium of exchange, the universal translator that converts your value into the resources necessary for your growth. Money is not evil. Money is neutral. It is simply the tool that allows you to access the materials required for your development as a human being. Therefore, the right to life that is enshrined in the founding documents of enlightened societies is synonymous with the right to be rich. If you have a right to life, you have a right to the things that make life worth living. If you have a right to pursue happiness, you have a right to the resources that enable that pursuit. If you have a right to develop your potential, you have a right to the wealth that funds that development. These are not separate rights, they are the same right expressed in different forms. Wattles understood that poverty is not a spiritual condition. It is a material condition that prevents spiritual growth. How can you meditate when you are worried about rent? How can you study philosophy when you are exhausted from working 3 jobs? How can you create art when you have no time, no space, no materials? How can you love generously when you have nothing to give? The glorification of poverty is one of the cruelest lies ever told, because it convinces people that their suffering is somehow noble, that their limitation is somehow virtuous, that their incompleteness is somehow holy. But Wattles saw through this lie with perfect clarity. He recognized that the desire for wealth is not separate from the desire for life. It is the same desire. When you want more money, what you really want is a fuller life, a richer experience, a deeper expression of your potential. You want to read more, learn more, see more, do more, give more, be more. This is not greed. This is growth. This is not materialism. This is the natural expansion of consciousness, seeking the tools it needs to evolve. Consider the person who says, "I don't need much to be happy. I'm content with very little." On the surface, this sounds spiritual, even enlightened. But look deeper. What are they really saying? They are saying, "I have learned to suppress my desires, to shrink my dreams, to lower my expectations, to accept limitation as my lot." They have not transcended desire. They have merely learned to live with chronic disappointment. They have not found contentment. They have found resignation, and resignation is not peace. It is the death of the soul in slow motion. Wattles would say to such a person, "You are lying to yourself, and worse, you are betraying your own nature. Because if you are a normal human being with a functioning nervous system and a healthy psychology, you cannot help but desire more. This desire is not a flaw in your character. It is a feature of your design. You are built to grow, to expand, to evolve, to become more than you currently are. This is the fundamental impulse of life itself, and money is simply the resource that enables this impulse to express itself in a modern context. The person who claims to be content with poverty is like a tree that claims to be content with shallow soil. The tree may survive, but it will never reach its full height. It will never spread its branches wide. It will never produce abundant fruit. It will exist, but it will not thrive. And in not thriving, it fails to fulfill its purpose. The forest is diminished by its smallness. The ecosystem is impoverished by its weakness. The world is deprived of the shade it could have offered. the oxygen it could have produced, the beauty it could have contributed. This is why Wattles insisted that the right to be rich is not optional. It is essential. You do not have the right to remain small when you were designed to grow. You do not have the right to stay poor when the universe has provided abundance. You do not have the right to live an incomplete life when completeness is your birthright. To refuse wealth is to refuse life itself. To reject money is to reject the very tools you need to become who you were meant to be. And this rejection is not humility. It is the ultimate arrogance because it says to the universe, I know better than you. I will not use the resources you have provided. I will not fulfill the potential you have planted within me. Understand this. Your desire for wealth is not in conflict with your spiritual nature. It is the expression of your spiritual nature. Your soul wants to expand, and expansion requires resources. Your mind wants to learn, and learning requires tools. Your body wants to thrive, and thriving requires nourishment. All of these require money in the world we inhabit. Therefore, to desire money is to desire life. To pursue wealth is to pursue wholeness. To claim your right to be rich is to claim your right to exist as a complete human being. Wattles demolished the false dichotomy between spirituality and wealth with a single devastating insight. In a society where everything of value is exchanged through money, to be without money is to be without access to the very things that enable spiritual growth. The monk in the monastery may claim to have transcended material needs, but even he depends on the donations of wealthy patrons to maintain his monastery, to print his books, to fund his retreats. Even the most ascetic spiritual path requires material support. The difference is that the monk receives this support from others, while Wattles teaches you to generate it yourself, to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, and therefore truly free. This is the central concept that must become the bedrock of your consciousness. You have a right to be rich because you have a right to live fully, to develop completely, to express your potential maximally. This right is not granted by society, by government, by your family, or by your circumstances. This right is inherent in your nature as a human being. It is written into the code of your DNA, woven into the fabric of your soul, embedded in the structure of reality itself. And to deny this right is to commit a crime against your own existence. When you truly grasp this, when it moves from your intellect to your gut, from your understanding to your identity, everything changes. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop feeling guilty for pursuing wealth. You stop shrinking from opportunities because you fear being seen as greedy. You recognize that your ambition is not ego, it is evolution. Your desire is not sin, it is signal. Your hunger for more is not pathology. It is prophecy, the universe whispering through your nervous system. You were made for more than this. Claim it. Now let me give you an analogy that will make this truth undeniable, so clear that you will never again be able to hide behind false humility or spiritual bypassing. Consider a seed, any seed, an acorn, a kernel of corn, a tiny apple seed. This seed contains within it the blueprint for something magnificent, a towering oak, a field of golden grain, an orchard of fruit-bearing trees. But the seed cannot become what it is meant to become without resources. It must draw nutrients from the soil. It must absorb water from the rain. It must capture light from the sun. Without these resources, the seed remains a seed, potential unrealized, promise unfulfilled, purpose betrayed. Now imagine that the seed develops a consciousness, a voice, a moral faculty. And imagine that this seed, influenced by the teachings of poverty consciousness, begins to feel guilty about its needs. It thinks, who am I to take nutrients from the soil? There are other seeds here. If I take too much, won't I be depriving them? Isn't it selfish of me to want to grow so large? Shouldn't I be content to remain small, humble, unobtrusive? So the seed restricts its root system. It refuses to drink deeply from the rain. It turns away from the sun. And what happens? The seed dies, or worse, it becomes a stunted, malformed version of what it could have been, a mockery of its potential. This is precisely what you do when you deny yourself wealth. You are that seed, And money is simply the nutrient you need to unfold your full potential. The soil does not judge the seed for drawing nutrients. The soil exists to provide those nutrients. The rain does not condemn the seed for drinking. The rain exists to be drunk. The sun does not punish the seed for capturing its light. The sun exists to give that light. In the same way, the universe does not judge you for desiring wealth. The universe has created wealth so that you can grow into the magnificent being you were designed to become. But here is where the analogy becomes even more powerful. When the seed refuses to grow, it does not just harm itself, it harms the entire ecosystem. The forest needs that tree. The birds need its branches for nesting. The squirrels need its acorns for food. The soil needs its roots to prevent erosion. The atmosphere needs its leaves to produce oxygen. The landscape needs its presence for beauty. When the seed refuses to become a tree, it is not being humble, it is being selfish. It is depriving the world of the contribution it was meant to make. You are no different. When you refuse to claim your right to wealth, when you remain small and limited and poor, you are not serving the world, you are depriving it. The world needs what you could create if you had the resources. The world needs the art you could produce, the businesses you could build, the innovations you could develop, the jobs you could provide, the charity you could fund, the inspiration you could offer. Every person who has ever made a significant contribution to humanity has had to first solve the money problem. They had to become wealthy enough to have the time, the energy, the resources, and the freedom to do their great work. Think of the inventors who needed funding for their laboratories. Think of the artists who needed patrons to support their craft. Think of the philanthropists who needed fortunes to build hospitals, libraries, and schools. Think of the spiritual teachers who needed resources to travel, to publish, to reach the masses with their message. None of these contributions could have been made by people trapped in poverty, struggling to survive, consumed by the daily battle for basic necessities. Wealth was not the enemy of their purpose, it was the enabler of their purpose. This is why Wattles insisted that denying yourself wealth is denying the universe the tree you were meant to become. You are not here to remain a seed. You are here to grow, to expand, to reach toward the sky, to spread your branches, to produce fruit, to offer shade, to contribute to the ecosystem of human civilization. And you cannot do any of this without resources. You cannot do any of this without money. The guilt you feel about wanting wealth is not coming from your higher self. It is coming from the poverty virus, the programming that has been installed in your consciousness to keep you small, to keep you manageable, to keep you from claiming your power. Let me make this even more explicit. A seed has a divine right to become a tree. This is not arrogance. This is alignment with natural law. The seed is not better than other seeds when it grows into a tree. It is simply fulfilling its function, expressing its nature, completing its purpose. In the same way, you have a divine right to become wealthy. This is not arrogance. This is alignment with the law of your own being. You are not better than others when you become rich. You are simply fulfilling your function, expressing your nature, completing your purpose. And just as the seed that refuses to grow fails its purpose and harms the ecosystem, you fail your purpose and harm humanity when you refuse to claim your wealth. Every dollar you do not earn is a dollar that cannot be invested in your growth. Every resource you do not acquire is a resource that cannot be used for creation. Every opportunity you decline out of guilt is an opportunity for contribution that dies unrealized. You are not being virtuous when you stay poor. You are being negligent. You are not being spiritual when you refuse wealth. You are being irresponsible. The universe has provided abundance. This is a fact. Look at nature. It is profligate, excessive, overflowing with life. A single apple tree produces hundreds of apples, each containing dozens of seeds, each seed capable of producing another tree. This is not scarcity. This is abundance beyond measure. The universe operates on the principle of overflow, of excess, of more than enough. And you are part of this universe. You are not separate from it. You are not an exception to its laws. You are an expression of its abundance. And when you refuse to claim your share, you are contradicting the very nature of reality itself. Wattles saw this with perfect clarity. He understood that poverty is not a natural state. It is an unnatural state created by ignorance, by false beliefs, by the poverty virus that has infected human consciousness. The natural state is abundance. The natural impulse is growth. The natural trajectory is expansion. When you align with this natural law, when you accept your divine right to be rich, you are not doing something extraordinary. You are simply returning to your original design, your intended function, your true nature. So I ask you, are you a seed or a tree? Are you hiding in the soil, afraid to break through into the light? Are you restricting your roots, guilty about taking what you need? Are you refusing to grow because you have been taught that smallness is virtue? Or are you ready to accept the truth that Wattles revealed, that you have a divine right to draw from the infinite resources of the universe, to grow as tall as your potential allows, to become the magnificent being you were designed to be? If the seed felt guilty and refused the resources it needed, it would die and fail its purpose. You are that seed. Money is the nutrient. The universe is the soil, the rain, and the sun, waiting patiently for you to drink deeply, to grow boldly, to reach confidently toward your full expression. The world is waiting for the tree you will become. Do not deprive it any longer. Claim your divine right, accept your inheritance, and grow. Before we can move into the practical architecture of claiming your divine right to wealth, we must first establish the correct mental state. This is not optional. It is foundational. You can learn every technique, every strategy, every method for making money. But if your consciousness is not properly prepared, you will sabotage yourself at every turn. The required state is what I call divine entitlement, and I use this term very carefully because the word entitlement has been poisoned in our culture, associated with arrogance, selfishness, and unearned privilege. But that is not what I mean here. Divine entitlement is not arrogance. Arrogance is the belief that you are superior to others, that the rules do not apply to you, that you deserve special treatment because of who you are. Divine entitlement is something entirely different. It is the calm assurance that you are a child of the universe, claiming your inheritance. It is not about being better than anyone else. It is about recognizing that you are part of the same abundant system that produces stars, galaxies, forests, and oceans. You are not asking for something that is not yours. You are claiming something that has always belonged to you. Think of a prince who has been raised in poverty, unaware of his royal lineage. One day he discovers the truth. He is the heir to a vast kingdom. Everything changes in that moment. He does not become arrogant. He becomes aligned with his true identity. He does not demand special treatment. He simply steps into his rightful place. He does not apologize for his inheritance. He accepts it with gratitude and responsibility. This is divine entitlement. This is the state you must cultivate. You are not a beggar asking for scraps. You are an heir claiming your kingdom. The opposite of divine entitlement is what I call poverty consciousness, the deeply ingrained belief that you are separate from abundance, that you must earn your right to exist, that you are fundamentally unworthy of wealth. Poverty consciousness is not about how much money you have in your bank account. It is about how you relate to money in your mind. A person can have millions of dollars and still operate from poverty consciousness, always afraid of losing it, always feeling like an imposter, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And a person can have very little and operate from divine entitlement, knowing with absolute certainty that abundance is their birthright, and that it is only a matter of time before their external reality catches up with their internal knowing. The shift from poverty consciousness to divine entitlement is not a small adjustment. It is a complete revolution of your identity. It requires you to examine every belief you have ever held about money, about worthiness, about your place in the universe. It requires you to confront the voices that have told you to be small, to not want too much, to be grateful for what you have, even when what you have is not enough. It requires you to challenge the programming that has been installed in you by well-meaning parents, teachers, religious leaders, and society at large, all of whom were themselves infected with the poverty virus. This mental preparation is not passive, it is active. It is not something that happens to you, it is something you do. Every day you must practice thinking from the place of divine entitlement. When you see something expensive that you want, instead of immediately thinking, "I can't afford that," or "that's not for people like me," you must train yourself to think, "That is part of my inheritance. I am in the process of claiming it." When you encounter wealthy people, instead of feeling envy or resentment, you must train yourself to think, "They are showing me what is possible. They are proof that the universe provides." When you face a financial challenge, instead of panicking or despairing, you must train yourself to think, "This is temporary. I am connected to infinite supply." This is not positive thinking in the shallow sense. This is not pretending that problems do not exist, or that you can just wish money into existence. This is something much deeper. This is aligning your consciousness with the fundamental nature of reality, which is abundance. This is recognizing that scarcity is an illusion created by limited perception, and that when you expand your perception, you see that there is more than enough for everyone. This is understanding that the universe is not a zero-sum game where your gain is someone else's loss, but an infinite game where everyone can win because there is no limit to what can be created. Divine entitlement also requires you to release the need for external validation. You do not need permission from anyone to be wealthy. You do not need to prove that you deserve it. You do not need to wait until you are good enough, or ready enough, or worthy enough. You are already worthy by virtue of your existence. You are already deserving because you are alive. You are already entitled because you are part of the universe, and the universe is abundant. The moment you stop seeking validation from others and start validating yourself, you step into your power. But here is the crucial distinction. Divine entitlement is not passive waiting. It is not sitting on your couch and expecting money to fall from the sky. It is the mental state that precedes and enables right action. When you operate from divine entitlement, you move through the world differently. You speak differently, you negotiate differently. You take opportunities that you would have declined out of fear. You ask for what you want instead of hoping someone will offer it. You invest in yourself without guilt. You spend money on your growth without apology. You show up as someone who expects abundance because you know it is your birthright. This is the mental preparation that must be in place before you can effectively apply the 3 pillars of the right to be rich that I am about to share with you. Without this foundation, those pillars will crumble. You will learn the techniques, but you will not apply them. You will understand the logic, but you will not embody it. You will intellectually agree with Wattles, but you will emotionally resist his teaching. The poverty virus will reassert itself, and you will return to your old patterns of limitation and lack. So before we move forward, I ask you to take a moment right now and feel into your relationship with money. Do you feel like a beggar or an heir? Do you approach wealth with apology or with assurance? Do you believe that you must fight for every dollar, or do you know that you are connected to infinite supply? Be honest with yourself. There is no judgment here, only awareness. And awareness is the first step toward transformation. Once you see the poverty consciousness operating in you, you can begin to dismantle it and replace it with divine entitlement. This is the mental preparation. This is the soil in which the seeds of wealth will grow. Prepare it well. Now we arrive at the architecture itself, the 3 pillars upon which your divine right to be rich is built. These are not abstract philosophical concepts. They are concrete, undeniable realities that govern your existence as a human being. Wattles identified them with perfect precision, and once you understand them, you will never again be able to justify poverty as a virtue. These 3 pillars are the demands of your body, your mind, and your soul, and each one requires wealth for its fulfillment. The first pillar, the demand for body. You have a body, and this body has needs that are not optional. You need food to fuel your cells. You need water to hydrate your tissues. You need shelter to protect you from the elements. You need clothing to keep you warm. You need rest to restore your energy. These are not luxuries. These are necessities. And in a modern society, all of these necessities require money. You cannot eat without money. You cannot live in a home without money. You cannot clothe yourself without money. To deny yourself the money needed to meet these basic needs is to deny the body itself. And to deny the body is to deny the temple of the spirit. But Wattles went further. He said that it is not enough to merely survive. You must thrive. It is not enough to eat. You must eat well, consuming food that nourishes you, that gives you energy, that supports your health. It is not enough to have shelter. You must have a home that is comfortable, that is beautiful, that is a sanctuary where you can rest and recharge. It is not enough to have clothing. You must dress in a way that makes you feel confident, that expresses your personality, that commands respect. The body is not something to be merely tolerated or minimally maintained. It is something to be honored, celebrated, and optimized. Why? Because the body is the vehicle through which you experience life. If your body is weak, malnourished, exhausted, or uncomfortable, your entire experience of existence is diminished. You cannot think clearly when you are hungry. You cannot create when you are exhausted. You cannot love when you are in pain. The state of your body directly affects the state of your mind and soul. Therefore, to invest in your body, to feed it well, to house it comfortably, to dress it beautifully, is not vanity. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that you cannot fulfill your higher purpose if your foundation is crumbling. And this requires money. There is no way around this fact. You cannot eat organic food without money. You cannot live in a safe neighborhood without money. You cannot afford healthcare without money. You cannot take time off to rest without money. The person who claims that they do not need much to be happy is often the person whose body is slowly deteriorating from neglect, whose health is failing from poor nutrition, whose energy is depleted from overwork. They have convinced themselves that suffering is noble, but suffering is not noble. It is simply suffering, and the universe does not reward suffering. The universe rewards alignment with natural law, and the natural law says that the body must be cared for. The second pillar, the demand for mind. You have a mind, and this mind is hungry, not for food, but for knowledge, for beauty, for stimulation, for growth. The mind needs books to expand its understanding. It needs education to develop its capacities. It needs travel to broaden its perspective. It needs art to awaken its aesthetic sense. It needs music to touch its emotional depths. It needs conversation with intelligent people to sharpen its thinking. It needs challenges to strengthen its problem-solving abilities. Without these things, the mind atrophies. It becomes dull, narrow, rigid, and small. And here again, in a modern society, all of these things require money. Books cost money, education costs money, travel costs money, art costs money, concerts cost money, access to intelligent communities costs money. The person who is trapped in poverty does not have access to these resources. They cannot afford to buy books, so they remain ignorant. They cannot afford to travel, so they remain provincial. They cannot afford education, so they remain limited. They cannot afford cultural experiences, so they remain unsophisticated. Their mind, which is capable of infinite expansion, is instead confined to the narrow boundaries of their economic circumstances. Wattles understood that the development of the mind is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a complete life. A person with an undeveloped mind is not fully human. They are living below their potential, operating at a fraction of their capacity, experiencing only a small slice of what life has to offer. And this is not their fault. It is the fault of the poverty virus that has convinced them that intellectual growth is only for the elite, that education is only for the privileged, that culture is only for the wealthy. But this is a lie. The mind belongs to everyone, and everyone has the right to develop it fully. But to do so requires resources, and resources require money. Consider the person who works long hours at a low-paying job just to survive. When do they have time to read? When do they have energy to study? When do they have money to take a class, to attend a lecture, to visit a museum? They do not. Their mind is starved, not because they lack intelligence or curiosity, but because they lack the economic freedom to feed it. And this is a tragedy not just for them, but for all of humanity, because we are all deprived of the contributions their developed mind could have made. How many potential geniuses have been lost to poverty? How many brilliant ideas have died unborn because the person who conceived them could not afford the education to develop them? How many innovations, inventions, and insights have been buried in the graveyard of economic limitation? This is why your right to be rich is not just about you, it is about the world. When you develop your mind, When you expand your knowledge, when you cultivate your intellect, you become a more valuable member of society. You have more to offer. You can solve more problems. You can create more value. You can inspire more people. But you cannot do any of this if your mind is trapped in the prison of poverty, starved of the resources it needs to grow. Therefore, to claim your right to wealth is to claim your right to mental development. And to claim your right to mental development is to claim your right to become the fullest version of yourself. The third pillar, the demand for soul. You have a soul, and this soul has a need that is even more fundamental than the needs of body and mind. The soul needs to love, and love finds its most natural and spontaneous expression in giving. This is not abstract philosophy. This is observable reality. When you love someone, you want to give to them. You want to make their life better. You want to provide for them, to protect them, to enrich them. You want to see them happy, healthy, thriving, and the ability to do this, the ability to give generously, to provide abundantly, to enrich lavishly, requires wealth. Wattles wrote, "The man who has nothing to give cannot fill his place as a husband, father, or citizen." Read that again and let it sink in. If you have nothing to give, you cannot be a good partner. You cannot be a good parent. You cannot be a good member of your community. Why? Because love is not just a feeling, it is an action. Love is expressed through giving, and giving requires resources. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot provide for your family if you are struggling to survive yourself. You cannot support your community if you are drowning in your own lack. You cannot be generous if you are trapped in scarcity. This is perhaps the most devastating consequence of poverty. It cripples your ability to love. It forces you to be selfish, not because you are a selfish person, but because you have nothing to spare. Every dollar you earn must go to your own survival, leaving nothing for others. You want to help, but you cannot. You want to give, but you have nothing to give. You want to support causes you believe in, but you are barely supporting yourself. And this creates a deep sense of frustration, guilt, and inadequacy. You feel like you are failing the people you love. You feel like you are not living up to your values. You feel like you are less than you should be. But this is not a character flaw. This is an economic reality. You cannot give from an empty cup. You cannot pour from a dry well. You cannot light others' candles if your own flame is extinguished. Therefore, the first act of love is to fill your own cup, to replenish your own well, to kindle your own flame. And this requires wealth. When you are wealthy, you can give without depleting yourself. You can provide without sacrificing. You can enrich others without impoverishing yourself. Your love can flow freely because it is backed by resources. Think of the wealthy philanthropist who builds hospitals, funds scholarships, supports artists, and feeds the hungry. Are they able to do this because they are morally superior to poor people? No. They are able to do this because they have resources. Their love for humanity is no greater than the love of a poor person who wishes they could help but cannot. The difference is not in the heart, it is in the bank account. And this is why Wattles insisted that you can serve God and humanity in no more effective way than by getting rich. Not because money is the highest good, but because money is the tool that enables you to express the highest good, which is love. The soul's demand for love is not satisfied by sentiment alone. It is satisfied by action, by contribution, by making a tangible difference in the lives of others. And this requires wealth. When you have wealth, you can send your children to good schools. You can care for your aging parents. You can support your friends in times of need. You can donate to causes that matter to you. You can create jobs for others. You can invest in projects that make the world better. You can be a force for good in the world, not just in theory, but in practice. And this is what the soul truly wants, not just to feel love, but to express love in ways that matter. So here are the three pillars: body, mind, and soul. Each one has legitimate needs. Each one requires resources. Each one demands wealth for its fulfillment. To deny yourself wealth is to deny all three. It is to live in a body that is undernourished, a mind that is underdeveloped, and a soul that is unfulfilled. It is to exist rather than to live, to survive rather than to thrive, to endure rather than to flourish. And this is not what you were made for. You were made for abundance, you were made for growth, you were made for love, and all of these require wealth. This is not greed, this is the architecture of a complete human life. Accept it, embrace it, and build your life upon these three unshakable pillars. Now we must address the fatal mistakes, the ways in which people sabotage their divine right to wealth even after they understand it intellectually. These mistakes are insidious because they masquerade as virtue. They present themselves as spiritual maturity, as selflessness, as higher consciousness. But they are none of these things. They are traps, carefully designed by the poverty virus to keep you locked in limitation, even as you reach for liberation. The first of these traps is the one I promised to reveal earlier, and it is the most dangerous of all, the martyrdom complex. The martyrdom complex is the belief that sacrificing your own growth for others is noble, that staying poor somehow helps the poor, that your suffering serves a higher purpose. This belief is so deeply embedded in religious and cultural conditioning that most people never question it. They have been taught that selflessness means self-denial, that service means self-sacrifice, that love means putting everyone else's needs before your own, until there is nothing left of you. And so they do exactly that. They work jobs they hate to support others. They give away resources they need for their own development. They suppress their own dreams to fulfill others' expectations. And they call this virtue. But Wattles saw through this lie with laser precision. He wrote, "You can serve God and man in no more effective way than by getting rich." This is not a suggestion. This is a declaration. This is not opinion. This is law. And it completely inverts the martyrdom narrative. According to Wattles, the most effective way to serve is not to sacrifice yourself, but to develop yourself. The most powerful way to help others is not to stay poor with them, but to become rich and lift them up. The highest form of love is not to diminish yourself, but to expand yourself so that you have more to give. Think about this logically. If you sacrifice your own growth to help others, what are you really giving them? You are giving them the fruits of your limitation. You are giving them the scraps from your table of lack. You are giving them what little you have, which is not much. But if you invest in your own growth first, if you develop yourself fully, if you become wealthy and powerful and capable, then what you can give is exponentially greater. You can give from overflow instead of depletion. You can give from abundance instead of scarcity. You can give in ways that actually transform lives instead of just temporarily alleviating symptoms. Consider the parent who works 3 jobs to put their child through college, sacrificing their own health, their own happiness, their own development in the process. Society calls this noble. But what is the child learning? They are learning that love means suffering. They are learning that success requires sacrifice. They are learning that you must destroy yourself to help others. And they will carry this programming into their own lives, perpetuating the cycle of martyrdom. Now consider the parent who invests in their own growth first, who builds wealth, who creates freedom, and then provides for their child from a place of abundance and joy. What is this child learning? They are learning that love means thriving. They are learning that success is natural. They are learning that you can help others while also helping yourself. Which lesson serves the world better? The martyrdom complex is not spiritual. It is a waste of potential. It is not selfless. It is self-destructive. It is not service. It is sabotage. When you sacrifice your own growth, you are not helping anyone. You are depriving the world of the contribution you could have made if you had developed yourself fully. You are robbing humanity of the gifts you were meant to bring. You are betraying your own purpose under the guise of serving others. And this is not virtue. This is violence against your own soul. Wattles understood that the rising tide lifts all boats. When you become rich, you do not take from others. You add to the total wealth available. You create jobs. You stimulate the economy. You inspire others with what is possible. You demonstrate that the universe is abundant, not scarce. You prove that anyone can rise if they align with the right principles. By becoming wealthy, you lift the whole plane of humanity up. You show others the way. You become a beacon of possibility instead of a monument to limitation. This is true service. This is real love. This is how you actually help the poor, not by joining them in their poverty, but by showing them the path out of it. But the martyrdom complex is seductive because it provides a sense of moral superiority. The martyr gets to feel like they are better than those who pursue wealth. They get to look down on the ambitious and call them greedy. They get to judge the successful and call them selfish. They get to wear their poverty like a badge of honor, proof of their spiritual purity. But this is just ego in disguise. It is not humility, it is pride. It is not love, it is judgment. It is not service, it is a way of avoiding the hard work of actually developing yourself and making a real contribution to the world. The second fatal mistake is using the right for wrong ends, seeking wealth for pure sensual gratification or dominance over others. This is the opposite error, but it is equally destructive. The person who pursues wealth solely to indulge their appetites, to accumulate possessions they do not need, to dominate and control others, to prove their superiority, this person has missed the entire point. They have claimed the right to be rich, but they have perverted its purpose. They have taken a divine principle and twisted it into something ugly. Wattles was clear. The right to be rich is for life, not for lust. It is for growth, not for greed. It is for contribution, not for consumption. When you pursue wealth for the wrong reasons, the universe does not support you in the same way. You may acquire money, but you will not find fulfillment. You may accumulate possessions, but you will not experience satisfaction. You may dominate others, but you will not know peace. Because you are out of alignment with the purpose of wealth, which is to enable the full expression of life in all its dimensions, body, mind, and soul. The person who uses wealth for pure sensual gratification is like someone who takes a powerful tool and uses it to destroy rather than create. They have the tool, but they are misusing it. They are wealthy, but they are not fulfilled. They are rich, but they are not complete. And often they become cautionary tales, examples of how money without purpose leads to emptiness, addiction, and despair. This is not because money is evil, but because they have divorced money from meaning. They have pursued wealth as an end in itself, rather than as a means to a larger life. The right use of wealth is to expand life, your own life, and the lives of others. It is to develop your body, mind, and soul to their fullest potential. It is to create beauty, to solve problems, to serve humanity, to express love. When wealth is used for these purposes, it becomes sacred. It becomes a force for good. It becomes aligned with the divine will. But when wealth is used merely for self-indulgence, for ego gratification, for the accumulation of status symbols, it becomes profane. It becomes a source of suffering. It becomes misaligned with your true nature. This is why intention matters. This is why you must constantly examine your relationship with money and ask yourself, why do I want wealth? What will I do with it? How will it serve my growth and the growth of others? If your answers are shallow, if you want wealth just to impress people, just to feel superior, just to indulge every passing desire, then you are setting yourself up for disappointment. But if your answers are deep, if you want wealth to develop yourself, to serve others, to create value, to express your highest potential, then you are aligning with the divine purpose of wealth, and the universe will support you. These are the two fatal mistakes: the martyrdom complex, which keeps you poor in the name of virtue, and the pursuit of wealth for wrong ends, which makes you rich but empty. Both are deviations from the path that Wattles illuminated. The correct path is to claim your right to wealth for the purpose of expanding life, your life and all life. This is the balance. This is the wisdom. This is the way that serves both you and the world. Avoid these mistakes, and you will find that wealth flows to you naturally, effortlessly, joyfully, because you are in alignment with its true purpose. Now let me share with you one of Wattles' most bold and liberating statements, a piece of master wisdom that will free you from the last vestiges of guilt if you truly receive it. He wrote, "It is perfectly right that you should desire to be rich. If you are a normal man or woman, you cannot help doing so." Read that again. Let it wash over you. Let it penetrate the armor of conditioning that has made you feel ashamed of your desires. Wattles is not just saying it is acceptable to want wealth. He is saying it is normal. He is saying it is natural. He is saying that if you do not desire to be rich, something is wrong with you. This is revolutionary. This turns the entire moral framework of poverty consciousness on its head. For centuries, we have been taught that the desire for wealth is a sign of spiritual immaturity, that truly enlightened people transcend such base concerns, that the highest souls are indifferent to material circumstances. But Wattles says the opposite. The desire for wealth is a sign of health. It is a sign of vitality. It is a sign that your life force is strong, that your instinct for growth is intact, that you have not been beaten down by the world into resigned acceptance of limitation. If you are a normal human being, if your nervous system is functioning, if your psychology is healthy, if your spirit is alive, you will desire more. You will want a better life. You will want nicer things. You will want greater experiences. You will want to develop your capacities. You will want to express your potential. This is not pathology. This is normalcy. The person who claims to have no desire for wealth is either lying to themselves, or they have been so damaged by life that their natural instinct for growth has been suppressed. And this is not something to celebrate. This is something to heal. Wattles gives you permission to want. He gives you permission to desire. He gives you permission to pursue wealth without apology, without guilt, without shame. He says that your desire for money is not separate from your desire for life. It is the same desire. And this desire is not something to be transcended or overcome. It is something to be embraced and fulfilled. The universe put this desire in you for a reason. It is the engine of your evolution. It is the fuel of your growth. It is the signal that you are meant for more than you currently have. But here is the key. Wattles is not advocating for mindless greed or insatiable craving. He is not saying that you should become obsessed with money to the exclusion of all else. He is saying that the desire for wealth is natural when it is connected to the desire for a fuller life. When you want money so that you can read more books, that is natural. When you want money so that you can travel and expand your perspective, that is natural. When you want money so that you can provide for your family and give generously to others, that is natural. This is the healthy expression of the wealth instinct. The unhealthy expression is when the desire for wealth becomes disconnected from the desire for life, when money becomes an end in itself, a number in a bank account that you accumulate for its own sake, a score that proves your worth. This is not what Wattles is endorsing. This is the perversion of the natural instinct. This is when the desire for wealth has been twisted by ego, by fear, by the need to prove something. And this perversion is actually caused by poverty consciousness, not by the acceptance of the right to be rich. When you do not believe you deserve wealth, when you feel guilty about wanting it, when you are constantly afraid of losing it, then you develop an unhealthy relationship with money. But when you accept your divine right to be rich, when you understand that wealth is natural and normal, then your relationship with money becomes healthy, balanced, and life-affirming. Wattles also understood that you cannot suppress desire. You can only redirect it. The person who tries to kill their desire for wealth does not become free. They become repressed. The desire does not go away. It goes underground. It becomes a shadow that haunts them, expressing itself in indirect ways: envy of others, resentment toward the wealthy, self-sabotage whenever they get close to success. The healthy approach is not to suppress the desire, but to embrace it, to understand it, to direct it toward its proper end, which is the expansion of life. So here is the master's tip. Stop apologizing for wanting wealth. Stop feeling guilty about your ambitions. Stop pretending that you are above such concerns. You are not above them, you are in them, and that is exactly where you should be. You are a human being living in a material world, and you need material resources to live fully. This is not a moral failing. This is not a spiritual deficiency. This is reality. And the sooner you accept this reality, the sooner you can stop wasting energy on guilt and start directing that energy toward actually creating the wealth you desire. Another master's tip: use your desire for wealth as a diagnostic tool. If you notice that your desire has become obsessive, anxious, or disconnected from joy, then you know you have slipped into the unhealthy expression. You have allowed fear or ego to hijack the natural instinct. When this happens, pause and reconnect with the why. Why do you want wealth? What will it enable you to do? How will it expand your life? When you reconnect with the deeper purpose, the desire becomes healthy again. It becomes a clean, clear impulse toward growth rather than a neurotic craving for validation. And finally, understand that your desire for wealth is not just about you. It is also about what you will create with that wealth. Every person who has ever made a significant contribution to humanity started with the desire to have the resources to make that contribution. They wanted wealth not for its own sake, but for what it would enable them to build, to create, to give. Your desire for wealth is the universe's way of saying, I have something important for you to do, and you will need resources to do it. Listen to that voice, honor that desire, and pursue wealth with the understanding that you are not just enriching yourself, you are preparing yourself to enrich the world. Now let us validate this teaching by connecting it to one of the most influential frameworks in modern psychology, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you are familiar with Maslow's work, you know that he proposed a pyramid of human needs, starting with basic physiological needs at the bottom and ascending to self-actualization at the top. What is remarkable is that Maslow, working decades after Wattles and from a completely different discipline, arrived at essentially the same conclusion. You cannot reach the highest levels of human development if the lower levels are not satisfied. You cannot self-actualize if you are worried about food and shelter. At the base of Maslow's pyramid are physiological needs: food, water, warmth, rest. These are survival needs. If these are not met, nothing else matters. You cannot think about philosophy when you are starving. You cannot create art when you are freezing. You cannot pursue your purpose when you are exhausted. The body's needs must be met first. And as we have already established, in a modern society, meeting these needs requires money. Therefore, the foundation of Maslow's pyramid is economic. Without wealth, you are trapped at the base, forever struggling to survive, never able to ascend. The second level is safety needs: security, stability, freedom from fear. Again, these require money. You need a safe home. You need financial stability. You need insurance against catastrophe. You need the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can handle emergencies. Without wealth, you live in constant anxiety. You are always one crisis away from disaster. You cannot feel safe, and without safety, you cannot move up the pyramid. You remain stuck in survival mode, your nervous system perpetually activated, your energy consumed by fear. The third level is love and belonging, relationships, community, connection. Here too, wealth plays a role, though less obviously. When you are trapped in poverty, when you are working multiple jobs just to survive, when do you have time for relationships? When do you have energy for community? When do you have resources to contribute? Poverty isolates you. It forces you to be self-focused because you have no choice. But when you have wealth, you have time, you have energy. You have resources to invest in relationships, to build community, to create belonging. You can be present for the people you love. You can show up fully, you can give generously. The fourth level is esteem needs: respect, recognition, achievement, confidence. This is where you begin to express your unique talents and make your mark on the world. But again, how can you achieve anything significant if you are trapped in survival mode? How can you develop mastery if you cannot afford training? How can you build confidence if every financial setback destroys you? Wealth provides the foundation for achievement. It gives you the resources to develop your skills, the stability to take risks, the freedom to pursue excellence. Without it, your esteem needs remain unmet, and you are left feeling inadequate, unsuccessful, unfulfilled. And finally, at the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, becoming the fullest version of yourself, expressing your unique potential, fulfilling your life's purpose. This is the highest human need, the ultimate goal of existence. But Maslow was clear. You cannot reach this level if the lower levels are not satisfied. You cannot self-actualize if you are worried about money. You cannot become your highest self if you are trapped in poverty. Self-actualization requires freedom. Freedom from survival concerns, freedom from financial anxiety, freedom from the constant grind of making ends meet. And freedom requires wealth. This is exactly what Wattles was teaching. He said that you cannot live a complete or successful life unless you are rich. Maslow said that you cannot self-actualize unless your basic needs are met. These are the same truth expressed in different languages. Wattles was speaking the language of spiritual philosophy. Maslow was speaking the language of humanistic psychology, but both were pointing to the same reality. Wealth is the foundation of human development. It is not the goal. It is the platform. It is not the destination. It is the vehicle. It is not the purpose. It is the enabler of purpose. What makes this validation so powerful is that Maslow was not a spiritual teacher. He was a scientist. He was observing human behavior and identifying patterns. He was not advocating for wealth. He was simply reporting what he saw. People who have their basic needs met are able to pursue higher goals. People who do not have their basic needs met are trapped in survival. This is not philosophy. This is psychology. This is not belief. This is observation. And it confirms everything Wattles taught about the right to be rich. Consider the implications. If self-actualization is the highest human need, and if self-actualization requires that lower needs be satisfied, and if satisfying lower needs requires money, then the pursuit of wealth is not optional. It is essential for human development. You are not being greedy when you pursue wealth. You are being responsible. You are not being materialistic. You are being realistic. You are not betraying your spiritual nature. You are honoring it by creating the conditions in which it can fully express itself. Maslow also identified certain characteristics of self-actualized people. They are creative, spontaneous, authentic, accepting of themselves and others, focused on problems outside themselves rather than self-focused, appreciative of life, capable of deep relationships, and resistant to enculturation. They think for themselves. Now ask yourself, can you develop these qualities if you are trapped in poverty? Can you be creative when you are exhausted? Can you be spontaneous when you are anxious? Can you focus on problems outside yourself when you are consumed by your own survival? Can you appreciate life when you are constantly struggling? Can you form deep relationships when you have no time or energy? Can you think for yourself when you are too tired to think at all? The answer is no, or at least it is much, much harder. Poverty is a constraint on human development. It is a ceiling on your potential. It is a prison that keeps you from becoming who you were meant to be. And this is why Wattles insisted that you have a right to be rich, because you have a right to develop fully, to express completely, to actualize your potential maximally. To deny yourself wealth is to deny yourself the very conditions necessary for self-actualization. It is to choose limitation over expansion, confinement over freedom, survival over thriving. Maslow's hierarchy validates Wattles' teaching in another way as well. It shows that the desire for wealth is not separate from the desire for self-actualization. It is part of the same trajectory. When you want money, what you really want is to move up the pyramid. You want to satisfy your basic needs so you can pursue higher needs. You want security so you can take creative risks. You want stability so you can explore your potential. You want freedom so you can express your authentic self. The desire for wealth is the desire for self-actualization, expressing itself at the economic level. This is why guilt about wanting money is so destructive. It is guilt about wanting to grow. It is guilt about wanting to develop. It is guilt about wanting to become your fullest self. And this guilt keeps you trapped at the lower levels of the pyramid, forever struggling with survival, never ascending to the heights you were designed to reach. When you release the guilt, when you accept your right to be rich, you give yourself permission to climb. You give yourself permission to grow. You give yourself permission to actualize. And this is not selfishness. This is self-love. This is not greed. This is growth. This is not materialism. This is the natural unfolding of human potential. Now let me give you a concrete illustration that will make this truth visceral and undeniable. Imagine a talented artist, a painter with genuine gift, someone who sees the world in colors and forms that others cannot perceive, someone whose work has the potential to move people, to inspire them, to awaken something in their souls. This artist is born into poverty. They grow up in a neighborhood where survival is the only goal. They have talent, but they have no resources to develop it. They cannot afford art supplies. They cannot afford classes. They cannot afford to visit museums or study the masters. They certainly cannot afford the luxury of time to practice their craft. So what happens? This artist gets a job, a minimum wage job at a fast food restaurant or a retail store or a warehouse. They work 8, 10, 12 hours a day. They come home exhausted. They have no energy to paint. They have no money for supplies. They have no time for growth. On their rare days off, they are too depleted to create. The bills pile up. The stress accumulates. The dream of being an artist fades into the background, becoming a wistful fantasy, a someday that never comes, and eventually the artist stops being an artist altogether. They become just another person trapped in survival, their gift buried, their potential unrealized, their purpose unfulfilled. Now, consider the world's perspective. The world has been deprived of this artist's work. Museums will never display their paintings. Art lovers will never be moved by their vision. Future artists will never be inspired by their example. The conversations that their art could have sparked will never happen. The beauty they could have created will never exist. The joy they could have brought to others will never be experienced. This is not just a personal tragedy, it is a collective loss. Humanity is poorer because this artist remained poor. Now imagine a different scenario. Imagine this same artist discovers Wattles' teaching. They understand their divine right to be rich. They apply the science of getting rich. They develop the mental state of divine entitlement. They align their consciousness with abundance, and they begin to create wealth. Not overnight, but progressively, systematically, inevitably. They get a better job. They start a side business. They invest wisely. They build financial freedom. And as their wealth grows, something else grows, their capacity to be an artist. Now they can afford art supplies, not cheap supplies, but professional-grade materials that allow them to express their vision fully. Now they can afford classes with master teachers who help them refine their technique. Now they can afford to visit museums, to study the great works, to immerse themselves in the world of art. Now they can afford time, the most precious resource of all. They can reduce their work hours. They can dedicate mornings to painting. They can take sabbaticals to focus entirely on their craft. They can travel to places that inspire them. They can experiment, fail, learn, and grow without the pressure of survival crushing their creativity. And what happens? The art emerges. The paintings are created. The exhibitions are held. The work is seen, appreciated, bought, displayed. People are moved. Lives are changed. Other artists are inspired. The culture is enriched. And this artist, who was once trapped in poverty, is now fulfilling their purpose. They are expressing their gift. They are contributing to humanity. They are living a complete life. They are self-actualized. And all of this became possible because they claimed their right to be rich. Now I ask you, which version of this artist's life served God better? The poor version, trapped in survival, gift buried, potential wasted, or the wealthy version, free to create, gift expressed, potential realized? The answer is obvious. The wealthy version served God, served humanity, and served themselves infinitely better. The poor version was a tragedy. The wealthy version was a triumph. And the difference between the two was not talent, it was wealth. It was the acceptance of the right to be rich. It was the understanding that poverty is not virtue, and wealth is not sin. This is not a hypothetical story. This is the story of countless artists, writers, musicians, inventors, entrepreneurs, and visionaries throughout history. The ones who made contributions that we remember, the ones whose work changed the world, the ones who fulfilled their potential. They all had to solve the money problem first. They had to create the economic foundation that gave them the freedom to do their great work. Some inherited wealth, some married into it, some created it themselves, but all of them had it, because without it, the work could not be done. And this is true not just for artists, but for everyone. You have a gift, you have a purpose, you have something unique to contribute to the world, but you cannot contribute it if you are trapped in poverty. You cannot express your gift if you are exhausted from survival. You cannot fulfill your purpose if you have no resources to support it. You must get rich first, not as the end goal, but as the foundation. Not as the purpose, but as the platform. Not as the destination, but as the vehicle that carries you to your destination. This is why your pursuit of wealth is not selfish, it is necessary. This is why your desire for money is not greedy, it is wise. This is why your claim to the right to be rich is not arrogant. It is humble recognition of what is required for you to serve the world at your highest level. The world needs your gift, but your gift needs resources to emerge, and resources require wealth. Therefore, by getting rich, you are not betraying the world. You are preparing to serve it. You are not abandoning your purpose. You are creating the conditions in which your purpose can be fulfilled. You are not choosing money over meaning. You are recognizing that money is the means to meaning. We have journeyed through the foundation, the architecture, the refinement, and the validation of Wallace D. Wattles' radical teaching on the right to be rich. Now we arrive at the synthesis, the point where all of these threads weave together into a single, undeniable truth that will transform how you see yourself, your desires, and your place in the universe. Here is the synthesis. Your desire for money is actually the desire for a larger, fuller, more abundant life. It is the voice of the divine urging you to grow. It is life itself, seeking to express more of itself through you. This is not a metaphor. This is the literal truth. When you feel the pull toward wealth, when you want more, when you hunger for a better life, you are not experiencing a base impulse or a character flaw. You are experiencing the fundamental drive of the universe, which is expansion. Everything in nature seeks to grow. Seeds become trees, streams become rivers, stars are born from clouds of gas and dust. The entire cosmos is in a state of perpetual becoming, always moving from less to more, from simple to complex, from potential to actual. And you are part of this cosmos. You are not separate from it. You are an expression of it. Therefore, when you desire wealth, you are aligned with the deepest principle of existence. You are in harmony with the way reality operates. You are flowing with the current rather than against it. This is why Wattles insisted that it is perfectly natural for you to want to be rich, because the desire to grow, to expand, to become more is built into the fabric of your being. It is not something you can suppress without doing violence to your own nature. It is not something you should suppress, because it is the engine of your evolution. But here is what makes this synthesis so powerful. When you understand that your desire for money is really the desire for life, you stop chasing money for its own sake. You stop making it an idol. You stop measuring your worth by your net worth. Instead, you see money for what it truly is, a tool for expansion. It is the resource that enables you to read more, learn more, experience more, create more, give more, be more. Money becomes sacred not because it is valuable in itself, but because it is the means through which life expands through you. This shift in understanding changes everything. It removes the guilt because you are no longer pursuing something selfish. You are pursuing growth, which is the will of the universe. It removes the anxiety because you are no longer afraid of losing something external. You are confident in your connection to infinite supply. It removes the obsession because you are no longer chasing a number. You are expressing a principle. Money becomes a byproduct of your alignment with life rather than the object of your striving. And paradoxically, when you stop making money the goal and start making growth the goal, money flows to you more easily than ever before. Now I want to speak directly to you, to your heart, to the part of you that has been carrying the heavy baggage of guilt for far too long. It is time to drop it. It does not serve you, and it does not serve the world. You have been taught that wanting wealth is greedy, that pursuing money is selfish, that claiming your right to abundance is arrogant. But these teachings are lies, lies that have kept you small, kept you limited, kept you from becoming the person you were designed to be. And I am here to tell you, you are allowed to want more. You are allowed to pursue wealth. You are allowed to claim your divine right to be rich. You are here to grow, and you cannot grow without roots. In the natural world, a tree needs roots to draw nutrients from the soil. In the modern world, you need money to draw resources from the economy. Money is the root system of a contemporary life. It is what anchors you, nourishes you, and enables you to reach toward the sky. Without it, you remain small, stunted, unable to fulfill your potential. With it, you can grow so tall that your branches offer shade and fruit to everyone around you. This is not selfishness. This is how you serve. This is not greed. This is how you give. This is not materialism. This is how you manifest your spiritual purpose in material form. Drop the guilt about wanting a beautiful home. That home is not just a status symbol. It is a sanctuary where you can rest, create, and recharge. It is a space that supports your highest work. Drop the guilt about wanting financial freedom. That freedom is not just about luxury. It is about having the time and energy to pursue your purpose without the constant pressure of survival. Drop the guilt about wanting nice things. Those things are not just possessions. They are tools that enhance your experience of life, that bring you joy, that allow you to express your aesthetic sense and appreciate beauty. Drop the guilt about wanting to provide abundantly for your family. That provision is not spoiling them. It is giving them the foundation they need to pursue their own growth. Drop the guilt about wanting to give generously to causes you believe in. That generosity is not buying approval. It is expressing love in tangible form. Drop the guilt about wanting to be wealthy. That wealth is not proof of your moral inferiority. It is proof of your alignment with the principles of abundance that govern the universe. You are not here to apologize for your existence. You are not here to shrink so that others feel comfortable. You are not here to play small so that you do not threaten the status quo. You are here to grow, to expand, to become the fullest expression of your potential. And this requires resources. This requires wealth. This requires you to claim your divine right to be rich without apology, without guilt, without shame. Accept it, embrace it, and use it to grow so tall that your branches offer shade and fruit to everyone around you. When you accept your right to wealth, you do not just change your own life, you change the lives of everyone you touch. You become a better partner because you are not stressed about money. You become a better parent because you can provide without resentment. You become a better friend because you can give without depletion. You become a better citizen because you can contribute without sacrifice. You become a better human because you are operating from overflow rather than lack. This is the message of empowerment. Your wealth serves the world. Your abundance lifts others. Your prosperity creates possibilities for everyone around you. Now I issue you a challenge that will test whether you have truly absorbed this teaching or whether you are still operating under the old programming. I call this the Divine Audacity Challenge. For 1 week, just 7 days, I want you to change the way you speak to yourself about money. Whenever you desire something expensive that would help you grow, a book, a course, a tool, a service, an experience, do not say, "I can't afford it." That phrase is the language of poverty consciousness. That phrase reinforces the belief that you are separate from abundance. That phrase keeps you trapped in limitation. Instead, I want you to say this: "It is my Father's pleasure to give me the kingdom. I claim this for my growth." Feel the shift that occurs when you say these words. Feel how different it is to speak from divine entitlement rather than from lack. Feel how the energy changes, how the possibility opens, how the universe responds differently when you claim your inheritance rather than begging for scraps. This is not positive thinking. This is alignment with truth. This is not affirmation. This is declaration. This is not pretending. This is recognizing what has always been real. For 7 days, practice this. Every time you want something, claim it with audacity, not with arrogance, but with the calm assurance of an heir who knows that the kingdom belongs to them. Notice what happens. Notice how opportunities begin to appear. Notice how solutions present themselves. Notice how the money starts to flow in unexpected ways. Notice how your relationship with wealth begins to transform. This is not magic. This is the natural result of aligning your consciousness with the principle of abundance that governs reality. But here is the deeper purpose of this challenge. It is not really about getting things. It is about breaking the pattern of apology that has governed your life. It is about training yourself to speak from power rather than from powerlessness. It is about reconditioning your nervous system to expect abundance rather than to brace for scarcity. It is about becoming the person who naturally attracts wealth because they believe it is their right. And when you become that person, wealth is inevitable. Not because you are manipulating the universe, but because you are finally in harmony with it. if you are ready to stop apologizing for your existence, if you are ready to claim the resources you need to truly live, if you are ready to accept your divine right to wealth without guilt or shame, then I invite you to take action right now. Subscribe to the Master's Legacy. This channel is not just a collection of videos. It is a school for those who refuse to live small lives. It is a sanctuary for those who have heard the call to grow and are willing to do what it takes to answer that call. It is a community of people who understand that wealth is not the enemy of spirituality, but the foundation of it. Comment below, "I claim my divine right," and feel the shift that occurs as you type those words. Feel the old programming cracking. Feel the new identity emerging. Feel the universe responding to your declaration. This is not just a comment. This is a commitment. This is you drawing a line in the sand and saying, "I will no longer live in poverty consciousness. I will no longer apologize for wanting more. I will no longer shrink from my potential. I claim my divine right to be rich, and I will use that wealth to become the person I was designed to be and to serve the world at my highest level." Wallace D. Wattles gave you the key. He revealed the truth that poverty is not virtue, and wealth is not sin. He showed you that you have a divine right to be rich, not as a privilege, but as a requirement for a complete life. He demolished the lies that have kept humanity trapped in limitation for centuries. And now the question is, will you use this key? Will you accept this truth? Will you claim this right? The choice is yours. But know this, the universe is waiting for you to grow. The world needs what you will become when you are free from the prison of poverty. And your soul will never rest until you fulfill the potential that has been planted within you. The time is now. The right is yours. Claim it.